If you're a dedicated follower of the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, and let's face it, why wouldn't you be, then you might remember that about 18 months ago I posted a video about my very own car, a 2006 Skoda Octavia vRS. Now, the other day in the comments of another video, I was asked by Ollie Hudson, one of our beloved viewers, whether I still had it. And the answer is, you bet I do. And it kind of made me think that we should do a little update on the car, if only for Ollie's sake. So here we are. Now, in the first video, I said that what I liked most about this car was the fact that it didn't really feel as old as its 16 years, and that most of what's good about it is the very same stuff that's good about the very latest Octavia vRS, but for an absolute fraction of the price. However, we stopped short of doing a direct comparison because, well, I didn't think it would be very fair on my car. Well, it is time to put that right. Here we have a brand spanking new 2022 Octavia vRS Mk4 to go up against my old timer. This car was actually registered less than 2 months ago, so it is properly fresh out the box, and it's got 16 years and 2 generations on my beloved old Mk2. You may well think then that my car is in for an absolute trouncing, and it might well be. However, I'm confident enough that it will stand comparison to at least give it a go. Here's how it's going to work. Each of these two cars will be thoroughly tested in each of the critically important areas considered in a regular CarGurus road test. They'll be compared directly, and whichever car does better in that area scores a point. And at the end, we'll tot up the scores and see what's what. Simple. So let's start by considering our car's practicality. There's not a whole lot in it, but first blood goes to the Mk4. There's virtually nothing in it here either, but the Mk4 just takes it by a whisker. Both have 60/40 split folding rear seats with a through loading hatch, and in both, the load area you're left with is both stepped and sloped. However, the Mk4 takes it thanks to a powered tailgate and catches in the boot to drop the spring-loaded rear seats. Very similar amount of manual movement in the steering column and seat, and both have lumbar adjustments, so the points are shared. The Mk2 has a wider rear window for better over-the-shoulder visibility, while the Mk4 is slightly better at the front quarters, so overall the points are shared once again. The Mk4's cabin definitely feels smarter with better materials and more modern design, but the Mk2 runs it surprisingly close, especially considering the 16 years of wear and tear it's had to endure. I've upgraded the Mk2 with an aftermarket stereo to include Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but the Mk4 gets the point because it has more features and a slicker operating system. It's no colossal surprise, given the 16-year age gap, that the Mk4 Octavia is available with much more in the way of equipment, and more of it is provided as standard. Again, it's no colossal surprise that the same applies with safety equipment. The Mk4 may be bigger and heavier than the Mk2, but more modern engine technology means that it's also cleaner. Again, it's no surprise that the Mk4's engine is more powerful as well, making it faster overall. That said, the differences in outright performance are fairly marginal on paper, and even more marginal in terms of sensation in the real world. And if anything, the Mk2 actually has the more flexible engine of the pair. The Mk2 does very well on this score compared with hot hatches of its day, but it's no match for the much more sophisticated Mk4, especially when it's fitted with £995 worth of optional adaptive suspension, like our test car is. That adaptive suspension will also help on the handling front, and sure enough, the Mk4 has much greater control over its body movements than the Mk2, while also being much grippier, so it generally feels more pointy and assured. However, the Mk2 does have the more feelsome steering of the pair. It's a clear win here for the much quieter Mk4, which also happens to have a fruitier sounding engine. So there you have it. When you view it completely objectively and scientifically, the brand new car is better in pretty much every conceivable area than the 16-year-old snotter. Surprise, surprise, who'd have thunk it? But as much as that is a statement of the blooming obvious, our little exercise here also raises another point, and that point is this. Yes, the Mark IV absolutely smoked the Mark II in some of our tests, but in some others the Mark II ran the newer car surprisingly close, and in a couple it even managed to tie things up. And ultimately, aside from a bit more polish and sophistication, the characters of the two cars are actually very similar. And when you bear that similarity in mind, the difference in the costs becomes even starker. This version of the Octavia vRS Mark IV starts at £33,945. And what did I pay for the Mark II? £2,700. Now that is quite a difference, and to put it in some sort of context, you could pay a 10% deposit to get yourself one of these on PCP, committing yourself to 3 or 4 years of hefty monthly payments in the process. Or instead of paying that 10% deposit, you could just have a Mark II instead, along with a few £100 in your pocket. And that's just the starting prices. This particular Mark IV that we've got here, when you factor in all the optional extras it has fitted, costs $37,360. So that equates to about £3.5 worth of extras. And again, that's considerably more than I paid for the Mark II outright. In fact, you could buy one of these and add nothing more from the options list than a fold-out tow bar and electrically adjusting front seats, and you'd still be paying about the same for options as I paid for the Mark II. Now, I'm not out to knock new cars here, especially the VRS, because it's a really good thing, and for many people the newer car will always be the one they go for. But for me, and stingy old so-and-sos like me, making that sort of a saving feels really, really good. But even if you're not a stingy old so-and-so, the difficult financial times in which we find ourselves mean that many people will find it necessary to make cutbacks. So it is good to know that if you know where to look, you can save a heck of a lot of cost without sacrificing too much in the way of ability. We really hope you enjoyed this video, especially you, Ollie Hudson. And if you did, please leave us a thumbs up and hit subscribe, making sure to turn on notifications at the same time. And if we've inspired you to start hunting for a used car bargain of your own, head over to cargurus.co.uk to find it. And using our clever pricing technology, we'll even tell you whether the dealer selling it is giving you a good price or not.